Alright, as promised, a discussion about faith. I think the kind of faith that I would endorse, and feel comfortable endorsing, is going to be, or is going to require a very abstract conversation. These kinds of conversations, of course, are the lifeblood of any philosophy geek like myself, but these can cause visceral reactions to some of you pragmatists, so viewer discretion is advised.
Meet Jericomovie, a rhetorician. His video is a good example of rhetoric, the art of persuading, influencing people through language, through abstract philosophical language devices. In one modern sense, it's empty language. For example, faith means believing in something without any evidence whatsoever, but believing nevertheless. In short, we say faith. We make the abstract notion faith. Another example is love. We say love for short for all the different things we feel when we are in love. Or intellect. This is an abstract notion of all the cognitive processes that go on in our heads. So, but for short, we say intellect, and everybody knows what we mean.
I would argue that great feats of humanity throughout history, things that have broken the mould, things that have pushed the outside of the envelope, things that have redefined our perspective, have been done so with an element or a great deal of faith, of belief that this is possible without evidence.
I would argue that not only faith, but preparedness, studying, learning from the mistakes of others, helps us achieve unthinkable things.
For example, the first person who ever climbed to the top of a mountain, even though many people who had tried had died in the process, would have had to believe that they could do it, even though all the evidence pointed against that.
And there were many others who also had faith and tried to achieve the unthinkable, but didn't succeed. Nobody's heard of them. Jericomovie takes the idea of faith being beneficial from Coughlin and runs away with it in his theoretical abstract manner.
Good stuff. I'll put a link to it for you. I want to kind of pick up where he left off and take it one more step into the abstract. Coughlin supposed that in order to further human knowledge, we have to embark in some kind of faith. We have to make actions that are not directly informed by empirical evidence. He used the example of climbing to the top of a mountain. We can expand that and say that it's running a 4-minute mile for the first time, or shooting someone off into space the first time. In fact, the space example is useful because we can sort of easily use it as a model for a kind of limitation of human knowledge. That is to say, the first time we shot anything off into space, we could not be certain exactly what the environment of space would do to any of our satellites or any of our astronauts. We could say we had evidence to suppose what would happen to the satellite or the shuttle between the ground and that atmosphere. But beyond that atmosphere, a great amount of uncertainty was inevitable. So taken one step farther into the abstract, we can suppose that the human intellect itself is finite, that it has itself an atmosphere, an ozone layer, if you will. That is to suppose that it is naive to think that things that are inconceivable necessarily do not exist.
Ah, the reification fallacy. It has a name, so it is a thing. But the intellect is not a thing, it's not a separate entity that exists. We use this abstract name for all the cognitive processes that exist in our heads. But I would ask, where were these boundaries of the intellect when people believed that the earth is flat? And where were those boundaries later, when they discovered that the earth is round, that the sun rotates around the earth? Where were those boundaries when, before Einstein discovered the theory of relativity? And where were those boundaries after that? And so on.
Because I would suppose that faith, in its most abstract sense, is an openness to experience that which is irrevocably beyond human intellect. Unfortunately, a demonstration that you don't know what you're talking about. The kind of faith I'm talking about is an action itself, a means and an ends. It is, like meditative tradition suggests, a state of open,
Mouth?
untheorizing, unexpecting awareness.
Awareness of what?
Because I would suppose that faith, in its most abstract sense, is an openness to experience that which is irrevocably beyond human intellect. Unfortunately, a demonstration that you don't know what you're talking about. Right. And that faith is the openness to experience that which exists beyond.
Beyond what?
Again, I'm not talking about faith in something that is in competition with reason. I'm saying that reason is within the boundaries of human intellect. And you are a weasel.
And you, sir, are an intellectual weasel. 2 reasons. First, trying through rhetoric to convince people without any evidence that it's beneficial to believe, to have faith in the inconceivable, without explaining what that is. And second, you divide people into 2 categories. Don't get me wrong, they do exist. But you treat one of those categories in not a very good manner. Those 2 categories from your video are people who are open to the inconceivable, as you explain it, and people who are not. You call them pragmatists. We all know who you mean. People who do not have faith in faith. Naturalists, humanists, atheists.
The idea that there could exist things that go beyond human intellect, that exist of a sophistication that our meager attempts could not fathom. Unfortunately, a demonstration that you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh no! You look like my gynecologist. On second thought, you look more like a proctologist.
And, let me know if I can help with those tubes.
You often talk about bridging the gap. Is that how you bridge the gap between you and me?
And, let me know if I can help with those tubes.
No, not for me.
Time to play the game!